She said that she's been lying there, absolutely petrified, thinking, oh my gosh, is he going to kill me?
These are the cold case detectives, pursuing justice in crimes often decades old. A team of seasoned investigators and forensic experts at South Wales Police.
Did you have sexual intercourse with that woman?
No comment.
They're committed to solving some of the most baffling murders and sex crimes which have gone undetected for years.
It's horrific.
I just hope he does get punished.
Using the latest developments in forensic science to uncover new evidence, they're determined to put some of the most dangerous criminals behind bars.
The time will come where we will be knocking on their door and their world is going to cave in.
You're under arrest on suspicion of rape. You do not have to say anything, but anything you do say may be given in evidence.
Advances in forensic science have given the cold case detectives a chance to try and solve the 60-year-old abduction and murder of a little girl that happened on a busy street in Cardiff. For Jerry Blake, the murder of his childhood friend Carol Ann Stevens is close to his heart.
I've got a personal knowledge of this case, and of course, every time I think of it, there's a little knot in your stomach. You just hope that one day you're going to get that little bit of a breakthrough that we may be able to detect this case.
This morning, the team are driving 300 miles to interview a new witness.
So we're travelling up from South Wales up to visit a gentleman witness from the Folkestone area who is friendly with Carol Ann Stevens. He was a 6 or 7-year-old child at the time.
He stated that he was the young boy who was in what we termed in the day was a Red Indian outfit, and he was with Carol when she got into the car.
But the witness wasn't interviewed by police at the time because of his young age.
We're going to be showing him a lineup, and hopefully he may identify the person who he thinks he saw some 60 years ago. We're hoping that this person, who we know is a key witness to this, is going to say, I saw the driver and I may recognise him again.
The team want to know if the man he saw 60 years ago was Ronald Murray, the prime suspect at the time who was questioned but never charged with the murder.
He was quite confident that about the information that he was passing, and he also suggested that there was a possibility that he may identify this man if he saw a photograph.
You've got to be thinking this is 60 years ago, but you can also be thinking, my God, if he picks him out, where is this going to take us during the investigation?
Can I just thank you very much for making the call to us and giving the information that you have so far. Back in 1959, you of course were living in Malifant Street.
That's right, yeah.
I was only a short distance from you. Do you remember the area at all?
I do, yes. I remember the park. I remember the trams. I remember my second year at primary school. I went to Gladstone Primary.
Right, that's what I wanted to come to, because I just wondered. I was actually at Gladstone School, and well, just between you and I think I'm just a little bit older than you.
Yeah. She was one of the gang. She fitted in well with the boys, basically. So she was, if there was a tree, she'd climb it, or if there was a gate to jump over, it was the same. I think she was quite happy. She wanted that level of, amusement with the kids. She was not happy to be at home. She couldn't wait to get out. She was quite a wild child in that sense. We knew the whole family. We knew the mum, because she was only just a few doors down from us. I would say she was in the same street, definitely, probably 5, 6, 7 doors down the road from us. And regularly there would be a tap on the door, and it would be her, you know, can you come out and play? You know, it would be quite, you know, Sunday mornings or all sorts of times, and she seemed to be out from basically until it got dark, so she was always out, seemed to be out. And
Stephen was playing with Carol on the morning she went missing, and is believed to be the last person to see the 6-year-old before she was abducted.
I really feel that I was very much at risk at that moment. He may have taken us both, and we could both have been dead, I just don't know. I was certainly the one nearest the door when it was opened, and you know, if I'd got in, he might have just drove off with me. And as a 6-year-old, there's nothing you could do about it. You'd have no chance, literally. So I was lucky, and she was unlucky, but that's all you can say, really. You just don't know,
Tell me what you remember of that particular morning.
Well, the main memory is I remember the car door being opened, and there was a white bag of sweets on the chair, on the car seat.
Right.
I can remember that.
Tell me about the car.
It was dark in colour, leather seat, the door was open, and there was a white bag. I'm fairly sure he offered me the sweets first. And
He offered you sweets?
Yes.
There's a male in the car?
Yeah, definitely a male in the car. On his own, there's no one else. Whether we'd ever seen him before, I have no memory of it.
Did the male person speak?
He did, but I've got no memory of it.
You don't recall what was said? Or...
No,
Okay.
no, I've got no memory of his accents or...
Don't know his accent?
No.
Nothing strange?
If it had been, I would have remembered. He would have probably stood out a bit more.
What happened after you've been invited to have this?
Yeah, I would have stepped away. I wouldn't have got in the car for anything unless I'd known the person.
What did Carol do?
I only assume she got in, but I've not really got a memory of that.
Right. I think he realised that the information he had was absolutely crucial. And it put him in a huge position, a very, very difficult position. And he was trying to remember for when he was 6 years of age, and knowing full well that he was the last person to see Carol alive except for the murderer. Stephen, I certainly appreciate what we're doing. We're going back 60 years.
Yeah,
I'm conscious of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult for you to remember.
Yeah.
After taking a statement, it's the crunch moment of their visit. Can the witness identify the man he saw in the car? Strict procedures must be followed for the outcome to be used as evidence. So Jerry and James leave the room and hand over to Paul Hayes, a specialist in identification lineups. He's created a virtual identity parade of 9 men, one of them being their prime suspect, Ronald Murray, and the others being pictures of innocent men, unconnected with the case, who the police refer to as distractors.
Right, my name is Paul Hayes, with the home address of the witness in Folkestone in Kent. The date is the 6th of the 11th, 2019. The time is 11:47. Are you able to identify any person on the film?
Yes.
Are you able to identify any person on the film?
After 60 years, a new witness believes he can identify the killer of 6-year-old Carol Ann Stevens. The cold case detectives have travelled 300 miles in the hope that he can pick out their prime suspect from a virtual identity parade.
Number 5 was probably the only one that sort of came out of the page at me slightly.
Okay, in order to confirm your identification, is this the person you were referring to when you made your identification?
Yes.
Okay, Stephen, if you can just sign by here underneath.
Here we go.
Okay, unfortunately he's picked out a distractor, so it's a negative viewing.
Right.
That's a shame.
It is disappointing because had he picked the person out on the photographs today, then that would have been a huge bonus, and it would have been so significant given the lineup that it was. I think the word I'd have to use would be absolutely gutted. If we'd had a live witness who could have put Carol Stevens getting into Murray's car, that would have been the icing on the cake, really.
Now, Jerry and the team's last hope lies with the scientists who are looking for any trace of the killer's DNA on Carol's clothes. The ability to recover suspects' DNA from the tiniest of stains is already delivering results in their review of over 300 unsolved sex attacks, codenamed Operation Dudley. As they begin work on a new case in the suburbs of Cardiff, they're hoping for further success, this time on a vicious rape from 1980.
I remember it like it's yesterday. I remember every detail. I was scared to go out, well, for the first 5 years, scared to go out at night.
She got off the bus on Newport Road. She's been visiting family outside of the Cardiff area.
Detectives Jenna Hargraves and Patrick Cato are retracing the steps of the victim in this 40-year-old crime.
Until you've been at that location, you can't really have that true understanding of what that area looked like. And obviously it's changed massively since the offence happened, but the routes and everything are the same. So it's just to have that clear image and that understanding of what the victim is telling you.
She's walked along here, Partridge Road, where she's actually come face to face with the suspect. He's offered to help her carry her belongings. She's got a box and she's walking her dog. She declines, says, no, I'm fine, and then continues to walk down this lane. But as she turns around, she sees the suspect. She's turned, she's looked at him and thought, right, well, he was walking in the other direction and now he's behind me. So she panics and continues to walk. As she's walking, she can hear him picking up his pace. So she starts to run. She's got a pair of high heels on. She's carrying a box. She's got her dog. She's panicking. And then next minute, she just feels a push from behind her. And next thing, she goes sliding onto the floor, basically. She's felt the suspect then turn her over, where she's lying on her back, and he basically straddles her, which is when he then he rapes her. She said that she's been lying there absolutely petrified. It was around the time that the Yorkshire Ripper was still outstanding. And she said that she lay there thinking, oh my gosh, is he going to kill me?
After it happened, I was just a nervous wreck, you know. And I did drink too much. That's where it led to. It was, yeah, it was just to try and forget, you know. Once you get into that, into start doing stuff like that, you can't stop. I did go a bit off the rails. I know it's a long time ago. At the time, it's a lot worse. You know, you're hurting more, but you get, over the years, it fades a little bit. It's still in your head. But you learn to live with it.
I've sat in front of this lady and she has described a horrific attack that happened to her and the impact that it's had on her life. So I want to be able to do the best job, to be able to have the best outcome for her and to have some sort of closure for her, really.
The cold case detectives are determined to get the victim the justice she deserves. And it all hinges on the fact that key items of evidence from 1980 have been preserved. Forensic scientist Amy Lewis will now examine the 40-year-old samples for the tiniest traces of the attacker's DNA.
Unfortunately, we don't have any original clothing. However, we do have the fibre tapings from the skirt. So this is similar to like a lint roller, if you like. So it's sellotape that was dabbed over the surface to remove the fibres on the surface. So we're looking at those today for semen and DNA. You can't see the semen staining, so I use wet and dry swabs to remove as much material as possible. And then those swabs then were sent to a forensic provider to see if there is any semen present.
The stakes are high. The process will destroy the fragile taping, the only exhibit that could contain the attacker's semen. Amy has just one chance to capture the DNA evidence she needs.
I do feel a lot of pressure with cold cases. I have a lot of passion for cold cases because I feel like these victims have lived with this for a number of years, regardless of what the offence is, and they deserve justice.
Cold case detective Jerry Blake is haunted by the fact that the killer of his school friend Carol Ann Stevens is still unidentified after more than 60 years.
This is Gladstone School, which of course is only a stone's throw from where Carol was living and of course where I was living in Tewkesbury Street. All the children from the area all used to come to this school.
Jerry knows the team's new testing using cutting-edge forensic science might be his last chance to see the killer identified.
In the days following the finding of a body and the days leading up to a funeral, we as children were requested by the staff if we could all bring in 2 of the old pennies, which was a contribution to the floral tributes for Carol's funeral. And then, of course, on the day of a funeral, all the children from the school, together with the staff and parents, would all stand outside the front of the school as they watch the funeral cortege come up from Mallifant Street, and then, of course, into Catay's cemetery, where Carol's body was laid to rest.
With a child murderer still at large more than 60 years later, the question of who killed Carol Ann Stevens has always played on the minds of those living in the Catays area.
There was always the fear that he would come back. He could still be alive. That's the worry. He could still be alive, and did he do it again? And what drove him to do it? I mean, was it the first? Were there others? No.
Jill Ward was 13 years old in 1959 and is still looking for answers and justice for her friend and neighbour.
It would be good if they could put an end to it and could finally find out who actually did it. It'll put a lot of minds at rest, I think.
You want to find out who's done this? You know, I got children, and it is upsetting, but 33 years in the police force, you don't get used to it, but you just want to find the person that's done it.
We still have many of the exhibits left from the murder of Carol Stevens, which, as we speak, are with the Forensic Science Service. We can only hope with the advances in technology and in the science itself that we may get a breakthrough. I feel that would be our only opportunity to detect this case. So really and truly, everything is with the scientists. But it's been such a long, long time. The provenance of the exhibits has to be maintained. We can only live in hope, and would be so wonderful to get a result for this particular case.
With cutting-edge DNA technology now on their side, the cold case team have been testing Carol's clothes for any trace of her killer. But the senior team have some agonizing decisions to make now that the forensic tests have been completed.
With regards to leads and things like that, we're not getting anything that's jumping out. It is a slow process, and sometimes I think we just need to know when to stop. In several years' time, will there be something better that we can do with this sample? Is it worth me using this sample up now to try and get something, or hanging on to it for a few years where I might be more certain of getting a result from it?
Unfortunately, there's no groundbreaking evidence right now to say who's a potential offender of what happened to Carol. It's very disappointing. We've put a lot of work and a lot of effort to try and identify who may have been the responsible, but unfortunately, we haven't obtained that information. It's frustrating that you try your hardest, but the results just aren't there.
Okay, so, you know, it really then, in terms of this guy that we've discussed, you know, this Ronald Murray, who's been a sort of thread throughout this inquiry from, you know, the early days, you know, really, I think it's a fair assessment to call him, you know, a person of interest and a person of interest only. Certainly he's someone we're trying to rule out, but, you know, currently, as we all know, we've been unable to do it.
We haven't been able to rule him out, but likewise we haven't been able to firmly link him evidentially either.
No,
So,
we've got circumstantial evidence of movements, but you know, with today's sort of standards of charging, you know, you know, I think it's a fair sort of punt that, you know, we need, you know, more really.
Yeah.
It's clearly disappointing that all of the efforts we've gone to find out who the killer is, to try and prove or disprove if it was Ronald Murray, because he was a suspect at the time. We've been unable to provide those definitive answers to the family and to those communities in Cardiff and down in Horeb. So that is disappointing, but I think we can be satisfied that we've demonstrated we've done all we can do, you know.
The cold case detectives make the difficult decision to call it a day. For now.
There are those cases that kind of like, I don't know, they kind of like imprinted on your mind and you never forget about them.
You know, going forward, all we can do, if we can't, you know, further this to completion, is you know, take care of the documents, take care of the exhibits, you know, hope that in years to come there's a DNA 25 or DNA 27, which is even more sensitive, you know, to hopefully, you know, pave the way for people who will take our seats in years to come, can, you know, wrap this up once and for all, really.
For Jerry, it's a bitter pill to swallow, and he knows his childhood community will also be disappointed.
Maybe as a child you don't realise the full significance and things, but as an adult and as a parent, it's your worst nightmare and something you'd never really get over. You'd expect in this day and age, with science the way it's come on in all these years, that they could have perhaps linked something with what they found at the scene. I know it's a long time ago, but you would hope that with the new, you know, DNA bases and whatever, you'd think that they could. But of course, if the evidence isn't there, it's a shame, a great shame.
This is so sad and such a tragic end to a lovely little girl. Little girl whose life was taken far too young. All Carol did was to go out playing with friends and never came home. There's still people, former friends of Carol's and neighbours, who remember her and have come forward because they still want to find justice for Carol. We know that we're not far off from getting a result. Unfortunately, we haven't got it, but I know it wasn't for the want of trying. We'll still continue to try and get justice for Carol. And I just hope that we can do it in my lifetime. God bless you, Carol. You were so young, and you deserve so much better. God bless. Each day brings a new dawn for us. Just because we haven't got a result on this particular case, we look at the next case. What we have is that we have highs and lows, and we'll always be determined to try and get justice for all the victims of crime. That is the purpose, that's the reason why we're police officers.
And that commitment to get justice, whatever the passage of time, pays off with a breakthrough on the rape case from 1980. Forensic scientist Amy Lewis tested a taping thought to contain a semen stain that was recovered from the skirt of the victim.
I had some really, really good news. I found out today that we have a profile from the tapings that I took. It's a male profile, which more than likely is going to be the offender.
This DNA profile has now been searched against the national database of over 6 million names.
We have received a match from somebody who has been in custody previously and provided the DNA. The suspect is around the age of about 66, 67, according to this.
I think it's fantastic. Sending out a message to people that, you know, it doesn't matter when this crime was committed. Don't think that you've ever got away with it. Science and technology changes. The way we investigate a crime is changing all the time, and to be able to get a suspect out of that now is just, I think is phenomenal.
It's unbelievable. I never would have thought, not in a million years, you know. I mean, 40 years, my God. I would think, oh, it would be a miracle if they caught him, because they've forgotten about it now, you know, but I didn't. I just want him to suffer after what he put me through. I just hope he does get punished.
The next steps with this will be to arrest the suspect and go through a full judicial process.
We're good to go. Piece of this.
Okay, morning. 6 o'clock. Thank you for coming in so promptly.
The cold case team are on the verge of arresting a suspect for a rape that happened 40 years ago. His DNA was found in a semen stain on the victim's clothes.
Okay, the purpose of today is to effect the arrest following a cold case review by the Major Crime Review team. He's to be arrested on suspicion of rape. He's likely to be an engaging character. He's been arrested previously, and he's been arrested for indecent images previously.
From speaking to Avon and Somerset officers, it's quite a small flat. It's not a large area to search. We can access the building from the rear.
I just think it's absolutely incredible. You know, this is something that happened before I was even born.
Hi there, Roland Long.
Piece of this.
Just hold that for you. Okay, I'm going to take a seat there for me. Mr. Long, you're under arrest on suspicion of rape that occurred on the 17th of August 1980 in Cardiff, okay? You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. If you do not mention when questioned, something which will later rely in court, anything you do say may be given in evidence.
Their suspect is 66-year-old Roland Long, who has previous convictions for a string of sexual assaults.
We can do a search of the address. Have you got a laptop there? Have you got any other devices? Have you got a phone?
I think he was incredibly shocked, you know, 40 years down the line. I don't think he believed that we were going to come knocking and arrest him for an offence that happened back then.
Right, go on then.
Roland Long will now be taken to Cardiff Bay Police Station, where he will be questioned.
This is his opportunity to tell us what happened on that date of the offence, and to give us that insight of, you know, was he in Cardiff on that date? Where was he living? Did he have a family? Where was he working? Did he have any connections to the victim? You know, does he know her? So this is his opportunity to tell us his side of the story.
Okay, we'll go to Cardiff Bay now, Roland, okay?
Okay, come on then, Roland. We'll book you in, okay?
He put his sunglasses on while he was in custody, and it seemed like he was trying to hide himself, shuffling along like this quiet, older man, I suppose.
Can you take a symbol, sir, please?
Whether he was trying to come across as this innocent individual that wouldn't have committed a crime like this.
I don't know. I don't know how long he's going to be there. That's one thing we don't know. Okay?
Because he's been arrested for a recordable offence, that gives the police powers to take fingerprints, DNA, a footwear impression, and a photograph, which is video, okay? Right foot on the yellow pad. And then that same right foot straight to the middle of the white. That's perfect.
We've got that DNA evidence, and, you know, we want to know how have we located his semen on that victim's skirt. We want to find out, did he commit the offence at the end of the day?
I want you to sit back with me and face the top circle there of the camera, okay? A bright light's going to come on now, okay? One last thing to do then, I need to take a swab of your DNA, okay? You need to open your mouth slightly, it'll be from the inside of your cheeks, okay? Thank you. And it'll be the same on the other side, okay? Sure.
At this point, he could turn around and say that, you know, he met the victim and it was all consensual. But this is his opportunity to tell us that.
He's in...
With Long in custody, as the detectives gear up to question him, the rest of the cold case team get started on their next investigation. This time, a 40-year-old unsolved murder of a taxi driver from Cardiff.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming today. Just going to give you a quick 10-minute presentation on the review that we're starting on John Joseph Armstrong, affectionately known as Jack. The victim, born the 7th of September 1921 in Penrith in Cumbria, and moved to Cardiff in 1951.
Detective Chief Inspector Patrick Cato now believes recent scientific developments mean there's a very real chance of identifying his killer.
We're looking at a forensic review to revisit all the exhibits. The investigation at the time was a thorough investigation. There are over 300 exhibits from the scene. It has so much potential to find out who was responsible for this.
He's always quiet, Dad. Kept himself to himself. Like, he had a couple of best friends. Never knew him to go out drinking. Never knew him to go to the pictures ever. No. He just was a family man. He just used to go out, earn his money and come home, sit on the chair. Say he was awake, but he was asleep. He'd always say, I'm just resting my eyes and that. He had quirky little ways if he's driving. He never had his shirt sleeves down. He always had his shirt sleeves rolled up. And he always put his right arm out of the window. And his one arm was always brown, the other wasn't. Yeah.
We owe this to the victims of these horrific crimes. If we find that person who's responsible, that will be huge. That would really put some closure and help the family move on.
The murder weapon has never been found. I know there's extensive searches with metal detectors up and around the area, but it had never been found. But it looks as if the plumber's hammer has been used, or some sort of hammer, to the side of his head, and ultimately killed him. There's going to be a few photographs here now of which are quite disturbing. That's the blood, the heavy blood staining in the passenger seat of Jack's car. This is an indication that something has taken place there.
The person responsible for this has caused some horrific injuries to Jack and are obviously a dangerous individual and a danger to the public. And there is a possibility this person responsible is still alive.
On Friday, the 5th of October, 1979, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Jack Armstrong was called to pick up a fare going by the name of Mr. Williams. The customer had booked a taxi to take him from a pub in Cardiff to Cowbridge, a short distance from the city. At 1:30, Jack radioed in with his call sign Castle 10 to say he'd picked up his fare. This was the last time anyone heard from Jack. Later that evening, the police were called after Jack's taxi was found abandoned near the village of Treoes, 20 miles from Cardiff.
This is the lane path that in 1979 looked like this. 40 years worth of nature reclaiming the ground, and what we've got now is a path rather than a road.
Jack's car was found down in Treoes, and there was nobody in the vehicle. Jack was nowhere to be seen, and there was extensive blood inside the vehicle, and in particular in the passenger side.
Following the discovery of the car, 2 witnesses came forward with vital information. They saw a suspicious man cleaning inside the taxi, but he did not match Jack's description.
Whoever's done it hasn't just dumped it and run. They've taken it and taken the time then to wipe the steering wheel and
which is the witness that says that somebody is leaning inside the taxi. They more or less try and shield themselves and are certainly wiping something down, maybe even the steering wheel.
Yeah.
That would indicate that the person who was wiping that would be wiping off evidence relating to themselves, probably fingerprints.
The man seen by the witness quickly became the prime suspect.
Being able to position where Jack's taxi was and where it was dumped to. Parked facing the dual carriageway, obviously abandoned on the left-hand side just there. The road effectively was a dead end.
For somebody to come up this lane,
yeah,
it's, you know, they to me it would appear that they know where this lane is.
Back in 1979, detectives were fearing the worst as they searched for Jack and had to break the news to his family.
I was living with my dad at the time. I cut his hair for him, because I always used to cut his hair for him. And he went about his business as usual, like had his cuppa and his ciggy. That was his breakfast. That always he had a cup of tea and a cigarette and a cough, and that was his breakfast, always, for years. And he went to work, as far as I know, everything was fine. Never heard no more. In the evening, I went up to the pub because I used to play darts up there. And Robert, my stepbrother, came up the pub and said, "Your father's missing."
DNA technology, science has advanced significantly. Now, even the slightest touch is enough to yield DNA, even going back all this time. So there is a real possibility of getting DNA and find out who's responsible for this.
Next time, the cold case detectives sift through 40-year-old exhibits which could hold the key to finding Jack's killer.
We'd eliminate Jack, and whatever's left in that profile could be the killer.
And the prime suspect in a 40-year-old rape case faces tough questions.
He has held her to that floor
where he's raped her. Was that you?